Got a theme here today and yesterday of false accusations. Rampant. They're rampant everywhere against men. And we need more awareness of it. Otherwise, everybody just hears, oh, men are walking away because they're jerks. And no, there is a reason. Welcome back to Far From Eden. Good to see you here. And as you can see, we're mostly recovered from babysitting. Bosco the unicorn is back. So that's a sign that I'm recovering a bit. I don't know why it's so exhausting. It's not like I'm running around. I think you're just like, I don't know, in protection mode. I don't sleep the same when I'm when it's a sleepover with taking care of somebody else's child. Anyways, oh boy, I'm so fired up. This topic gets me so angry, and part of it is because I feel powerless to do anything to help. And so many men are just getting accused, and it seems like it's the best of them. You know, what is the phrase? No good deed goes unpunished. So we are on part 2 of the hit piece on Andrew Huberman. I say that because that's what it was called. So far in the part 1, we weren't really, it was, I don't know what he's accused of. Being a bad boyfriend? So far, that seems what it is. This was published in New York Magazine. This article is by Carrie Howley. She's a feature writer for that magazine since 2021. She's a 43-year-old married woman. She's a professor of nonfiction writing at the University of Iowa. And in 2018, she did the big breakout story of the gymnastics doctor who did some pretty horrible things, was accused of doing some pretty horrible things. Although nowadays, I don't know what to believe, because this is the boy who cried wolf, right? If they keep crying like, this is abuse, this is abuse, this is abuse, well, then, and it's not, how do I know when it really is? It gets to the point where, for me personally, I just go, I have to absolutely not believe it at first because of all of these false accusations, and that there's too much to gain by the women who are making the accusations, and they really don't lose anything. If they accuse a man of something, right, and it's false, and even the courts find out that it's false, police find out it's false, there's no repercussions. The man's life could be destroyed. He can lose his job, he can be incarcerated, and then he found innocent, and the false accuser, nothing happens to that person. And that's not okay. There needs to be something that people who want to make false accusations go, maybe I shouldn't, because I'll be in trouble if they find out I'm lying. Almost like they want women to make accusations. It's set up that way. It's set up to encourage it. Anyway. Continuing on. Asked by Time last year for his definition of fun, Huberman said, "I learn and I like to exercise." Among his most famous episodes is one in which he declares moderate drinking decidedly unhealthy. As Mackenzie puts it, quote, "I don't think anybody or anything, including prohibition, has ever made more people think about alcohol than Andrew Huberman," end quote. That's a very positive thing. I think we have an underexposed alcoholism problem in this country. When you have phrases like wine mommies, that's a problem. I think there's a lot of alcoholics out there that really have an issue, and it's not being reported, it's not being recognized, and clearly this is an attempted takedown, clearly, of this man, and all we're seeing is the things that the elites want to stop. They want to stop. They don't want society to heal, it seems. And they don't want men to, heal. And the ones that grew up without fathers and then look to people like Andrew Huberman and Jordan Peterson, well, they don't want those men to be like father figures, clearly. While he claims repeatedly that he doesn't want to demonize alcohol, he fails to mask his obvious disapproval of anyone who consumes alcohol in any quantity. Yeah, good. That's not a problem, lady. He follows a time-restricted eating schedule. He discusses constraint even in joy because a dopamine spike is invariably followed by a drop below baseline. He explains how even a small pleasure like a cup of coffee before every workout reduces the capacity to release dopamine. All very helpful, information. Do you guys get the sense, or is it just because I'm so fired up? You should see the other video that I made today. Is it because I'm so fired up that I sense that she doesn't like these things that he's teaching that are actually helpful? It's like she's trying to demonize, well, he's really strict and disciplined in his life. These are all great things. Also, they are things that can, I'm going to let you in on a secret, can intimidate a woman. Because when a man has those sorts of standards and that kind of a schedule and is that much of a perfectionist and asks that much of himself, he has standards in other people. He does. And I've said this in so many of my videos. Women don't like it when we think things make us look bad, So if he's very, strict about his diet and I'm just saying a scenario where maybe she, at the end of the day, got like fast food for her 2 kids. He's going to be like, and women don't like to be they don't even like to feel like they're being criticized. So, Huberman frequently refers to the importance of social contact and peace, contentment, and delight, always mentioned as a triad. These are ultimately leveraged for the one value consistently espoused: physiological health. Leveraged. In August 2021, Sarah says, this is the disgruntled girlfriend. I would be embarrassed if I was her. This is embarrassing, lady. Anyway, in August 2021, Sarah says she read Andrew's journal and discovered a reference to cheating. Why were you reading his journal? Imagine it the other way around. Oh my gosh. And discovered a reference to cheating. She says, gutted. I hear you are saying you are angry and hurt, he texted her the same day. I will hear you as long as needed for us. It's very kind. We don't even know what the reference. Can we be more vague? That's the thing. These accusations, the vagueness. They want other people, like a judge, to fill in the gaps, to imagine that it's so much more hurtful and devastating and violent than it was. Andrew and Sarah wanted children together. Optimizers sometimes prefer not to conceive naturally. Optimizers. One can exert more control when procreation involves a lab. Sarah began the first of several rounds of IVF. It's not necessarily because he wanted to do it in a lab and have control. It's probably because she's old. Did it say how old she was in the beginning? Let's look and see if it's in an obvious place, because I don't remember, you guys, but I feel like she's not a spring chicken as far as fertility goes. They talked about him for a while, blah, blah, blah. Sarah. If I don't find it soon, we'll just move on, because I don't need you guys waiting just for me to find something. Because I know it talked about her having 2 kids already from a previous relationship, but then became a partner. Sarah was not really... Okay, she was in her mid-40s. Yeah. Okay, no. It wasn't a lab because we can exert more control. She's not fertile anymore. She's in her mid-40s. Began the first of several rounds of IVF, and I'm sure he paid for all of that. That's expensive. A spokesperson for Huberman denies that he and Sarah had decided to have children together, clarifying that they decided to create embryos by IVF. Well, those are children in a very early stage of development. In 2021, she tested positive for high-risk form of HPV, one of the variants linked to cervical cancer. I had never tested positive, she says, and had been tested regularly for 10 years. A spokesperson for Huberman says he has never tested positive for HPV. According to the CDC, there is currently no approved test for HPV in men. When she brought it up, she says he told her you could contract HPV from many things. Quote, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about truth-telling and deception, Andrew told evolutionary psychologist David Buss on a November 2021 episode of Huberman Lab called How Humans Select and Keep Romantic Partners in Short and Long Term. Oh, that would be interesting to watch. That would be really interesting to watch, because I'd be trying to see if he's thinking about his situation here. They were talking about regularities across cultures in male preferences. Could you tell us, Andrew asked, about how men and women leverage deception versus truth-telling and communicating some of the things around mate choice selection? Oh my. Effective tactics for men, said a gravel-voiced 68-year-old Buss, are often displaying cues to long-term interest. Interesting. Often displaying cues to long-term interest. Men tend to exaggerate the depths of their feelings for a woman. It's true. And they can allow the woman to, stay with me here, stay with me. They can allow the woman to keep thinking that, oh, we're exclusive. Oh, this is going to be long-term. But they're not really saying it. But they don't want to lose her either. Here's the deal. Women, what you can do is you can, how about this, not go too far yourself in the relationship, especially physically, and then before you know what everybody's goal with it is your desire, are you looking for someone to marry? I think we need to come together if we're going to date. We need to come together with knowing what that person's intentions are. Are they not in that place right now? Are they, and as a woman, stop trying to force the relationship and go too far physically and all the rest of it and try to force it and then be mad that he's not, getting drug along in your fantasy of where this is all going. Because she's in her mid-40s and she has 2 children. She wants to get down that aisle. She's looking for a retirement plan. And yeah, maybe it's not true. But you know what? They're saying a lot of things about Huberman. This is just opinion and, based on so far the information I have about her. It seems to me she's looking for a good retirement plan and future, for the kids that she has already. Women are getting They get in, look, I'm in my mid-40s. I know that these women, they are tired of working. It did not turn out the way they were promised. And they're trying to like save and salvage whatever they can, and they'll do whatever they have to do that. Dangerous. And that's why the IVF. Because if you can't get him down the aisle, well, get his kid. Then you own him. That's what they think. Okay. Then he says in this podcast, I suppose, let's talk about infidelity in committed relationships, Andrew said, laughing. I'm guessing it does happen. Men who have affairs tend to have affairs with larger number of affair partners, said Buss, and so which then by definition can't be long lasting. You can't, added Buss Riley, have the long-term affairs with 6 different partners. Yeah, said Andrew, unless he's, and here Andrew looked into the distance, juggling multiple, phone accounts or something of that sort. Right. And some men try to do that, but I think it could be very taxing. All right, they're trying to make him look guilty by just how he's responding in this dialogue. This is so slanted. I feel sorry for this writer's husband. In 2022, Andrew was legitimately famous. Typical headlines read, quote, I tried a Stanford professor's top productivity routine and, I guess that was it. And, quote, Google CEO uses non-sleep deep rest to relax, end quote. Reese Witherspoon told the world that she was sure to get 10 minutes of sunlight in the morning and tagged Andrew. When he was not on his own podcast, Andrew was on someone else's. He kept the place in Topanga, but he and Sarah began splitting rent in Berkeley. In June 2022, they fully combined lives. Sarah relocated her family to Malibu to be with him. Her family, who's that? The kids? What a hardship. She relocated her family to Malibu. Wow, poor thing. This is all expectations. I feel pressured by her. I feel pressured to be in a relationship with her with all of this. According to Sarah, Andrew's rage intensified with cohabitation. He fixated on her decision to have children with another man. She says he told her that being with her was like, quote, bobbing for apples in feces. You know, what did I say? You say things in an argument, right? What are the things she said? I'd like to know what those things are. Quote, the pattern of your 11 years, while rooted in subconscious drives, he told her in 2021, creates a nearly impossible set of hurdles for us. You have to change. I was thinking this. He's very analytical. He's analytical of himself. We read in the first part that he comes from a broken home, that he felt his father took off and his mother was absent. So he felt abandoned. And since then, he has tried to repair that in himself and learn the things he didn't learn and better himself. And a man like that, a person like that, is going to continually be doing that. And then if they're with someone who uses excuses and isn't motivated, is lazy, like it's gonna start to come out. And when he questions her on it or asks something, it's gonna be a blow up. And I think that's fair. And if she doesn't want it, then leave. Nobody forced you to relocate your family to Malibu. Nobody forced you, lady. Sarah was, in fact, changing. She felt herself getting smaller, constantly appeasing. She apologized again and again and again. I have been selfish, childish, and confused, she said. No one's arguing here. As a result, I need your protection. Manipulative. A spokesperson for Huberman denies Sarah's accounts of their fights, denies that his rage intensified with cohabitation, denies that he fixated on Sarah's decision to have children with another man, and denies that he had been with her that he said being with her was like bobbing for apples and feces. A spokesperson said, quote, Dr. Huberman is very much in control of his emotions. I believe that. I 100% believe that. And I bet it makes her mad. I've said in another video, nothing makes a woman madder than when you stay calm. Woo! The first 3 rounds of IVF did not produce healthy embryos. In the spring of 2022, enraged again about her past, Andrew asked Sarah to explain in detail what he called her bad choices. Right, because he's trying to figure out, is this a pattern for you? Have you broken the pattern? Do you understand how you got into the situation before, and are you accountable for that? Or is everybody else to blame and you're innocent? Like, he's figuring this out, and he's trying to communicate with her and understand, like, what is your actual character? Whew. Ooh. Most especially having her second child. Right. Kevin Samuels points it out all the time. Well, if he's so bad, why'd you have a child with him? And then if he's still so bad, why'd you have a second child with him? She wrote it out and read it aloud to him. What? Andrew asked Sarah to explain in detail what he called her bad choices, most especially having her second child. She wrote it all out and read it aloud to him. A spokesperson for Huberman denies this incident and says he does not regard her having a second child as a bad choice. Right, he's probably saying it's not necessarily a bad choice, just tell me about it. But she's defensive and she feels judged. Because God forbid you were irresponsible and made mistakes and you're going to be accountable. Poor dude, man. Woo. And he didn't know the warning signs, clearly, because there were warning signs earlier on. And he seems like he's very kind and wants to please people. And probably was giving a lot of benefit of the doubt and didn't really understand women. But I think he does now. I think it's important to recognize that we might have a model of who someone is, says Dossett, or a model of how someone should conduct themselves. And if they do something that is out of sync with that model, it's like, well, that might not necessarily be on that person. Maybe it's on us. Our model was just off. Gibberish. Huberman's specialty lies in a narrow field, visual system wiring. How comfortable one feels with the science propagated on Huberman Lab depends entirely on how much leeway one is willing to give a man who expounds for multiple hours a week on subjects well outside his area of expertise. Oh yeah, we're in the land of, do you have a degree in that? I don't know, I can't answer that question, I'm not a biologist. Right. So don't talk about anything except for the things that you are certifiably an expert in. Although he's a brilliant man, clearly, if you've watched any of his podcasts. And he's, he clearly learns about so many things and then shares what he knows. This is just... His detractors note that Huberman extrapolates wildly from limited animal studies, posits certainty where there is ambiguity, and stumbles when he veers too far from his narrow realm of study. But even they will tend to admit that the podcast is an expensive, free, or as he puts it, zero cost, compendium of human knowledge. There are quack guests, but these are greatly outnumbered by profound, complex, patient, and often moving descriptions of biological process. Does she think she can say horrible things and basically subtly accuse him of things and then say something nice and then not get sued for defamation? Huberman Lab is premised on the image of a working scientist. One imagines clean white counters, rodents in cages, postdocs peering into microscopes. Quote, as scientists, Huberman says frequently, he speaks often too of the importance of mentorship. He, quote, loves reading teacher evaluations. On the web, one can visit the lab and even donate. I have never met a Huberman listener who doubted the existence of such a place. And this appears to be by design. In a glowing 2023 profile in Stanford Magazine, we learn, quote, everything he does is inspired by this love, end quote. But do not learn that Huberman lives 350 miles and a 6-hour drive from Stanford University, making it difficult to drop into the lab. Compounding the issue is the fact that the lab, according to the knowledgeable sources, barely exists. According to knowledgeable sources. Who were they? This is not journalism. Quote, is a postdoc working on her own funding alone a lab? Asks a researcher at Stanford. There had been a lab, 4 rooms on the 2nd floor of the Sherman Fairchild Science Building. Some of them smelled of mice. It was here that researchers anesthetized rodents, injected them with fluorescents, damaged their optic nerve, and watched for the newly bright nerves to grow back. Do you see that? Do you see what she's trying to do there? She's trying to bring in, oh, the lab's barely there. If it is there, he's too far away. He's never there. And also, like, cruelty to animals. Like, this seems like we are trying to take him down as a scientist. We are trying to attack his credibility as a scientist and a teacher. I mean, lady, you're revealing the agenda a little too obviously. The lab, says the researcher. I mean, seriously, what does this have to do? What does Sarah and all her expectations of a certain relationship have to do with his lab? Like, really, like, what? Where's the cohesion? The lab, says the researcher, was already scaling down before COVID. It was emptying out postdocs, apparently unsupervised, a $250,000 laser scanning microscope gathering dust. Once the researcher saw someone come in and reclaim a $3,500 rocker, a machine for mixing solutions. So, shortly before publication, a spokesperson for Stanford said, quote, Dr. Huberman's lab at Stanford is operational and is in the process of moving from the Department of Neurology to the Department of Ophthalmology, end quote. And a spokesperson for Huberman Lab says the equipment in Dr. Huberman's lab remained in use until the last postdoc moved to a faculty position. On every episode of his zero-cost podcast, Huberman gives a lengthy endorsement of a powder formerly known as Athletic Greens and now as AG1. Wow, we didn't even change paragraphs. We just went right into Athletic Greens. It is one thing to hear Athletic Greens promoted by Joe Rogan. It is perhaps another to hear someone who sells himself as a Stanford University scientist just back from the lab proclaim that this $79 a month powder covers all of your foundational nutritional needs. In an industry not noted for its integrity, AG1 is, according to the writer and professional debunker, Derek Barris, quote, one of the most egregious players in the space, end quote. Here we have a powder that contains, according to its own marketing, 75 active ingredients, far more than the typical supplement. I hope this is a good commercial for them because they're trying to bring them down. I've heard of Athletic Greens on other podcasts. I actually bought Field of Greens, which I hear from on Viva Fry's show. And I was like, I probably don't get enough, fruits and vegetables. So I gave it a go. It's good stuff. It is. Anyway, I think it's very similar. And this lady clearly is now we're in a takedown of a sponsor. Wow. She's got nothing. So she's just trying to throw anything at the wall. It's so weak. Okay, so we're talking about AG1. As performance nutritionist, I don't want to forget. So it has 75 active ingredients, far more than the typical supplement, which would seem a selling point, but for the inconveniences of mass. As performance nutritionist Adam McDonald points out, the vast number of ingredients indicates that each ingredient, which may or may not promote good health in a certain dose, is likely included in minuscule amounts. Though consumers are left to do the math themselves, the company keeps many of the numbers proprietary. We can be almost guaranteed that literally every supplement or ingredient within the proprietary blend is underdosed, explains McDonald's. What? We can be almost guaranteed that literally every supplement or ingredient within this proprietary blend is underdosed. That is not saying you said nothing, explains McDonald. The numbers, he says, don't appear to add up to anything research has shown to be meaningful in terms of human health outcomes. And indeed, the problem with most of the probiotics is they're typically not concentrated enough to actually colonize. One learns from Dr. Lane Norton in a November 2022 episode of Huberman Lab. AG1 argues that probiotics are effective and that the 75 ingredients are included not only for their individual benefit but for the synergy between them, how ingredients interact in complex ways, and how combinations can lead to additive effects. That's the good news about podcasts, Huberman said when Wendy Zuckman of Science Versus, pointed out that her podcast would never make recommendations based on such tenuous research. Quote, people can choose which podcast they want to listen to. Indeed they can, and they can choose which products. And I also know, and many of you know, are we going to listen to some people about what's healthy and what's not? Because we were told to stay inside, and we were told to take certain medicines. Are these the same people that are saying, oh, I don't think athletic greens is good for you? Maybe. Maybe. Oh my goodness. We're back to Sarah. I guess we ran out of things. Whenever Sarah had suspicions about Andrew's interactions with another woman. This is so disjointed. Okay. He had a particular way of talking about the woman in question. He said the women were stalkers, alcoholics, and compulsive liars. He told her that one woman tore out her hair with chunks of flesh attached to it. Oh gosh, he attracts crazy women. I have a theory. I think that the crazy women really like the strong, silent types, the stoic ones, because they're sort of is attracted to that stability. If any of you guys are out there and you're kind of that stoic guy, and you're like, why are there so many crazies? I think they like it. They like that stability. So she tore out her hair. Okay. He told her a story about a woman who fabricated a story about an unalive baby to entrap him. Why would he be telling her this stuff if it was shady? A spokesperson for Huberman denies the account of the denigration of women and the unalive baby story, and says the hair story was taken out of context. Most of the time, Sarah believed him. The women probably were crazy. He was a celebrity. He had to be careful. Yeah. And so maybe he is cheating. You're not married. You're not a virgin. So maybe you shouldn't, play family with someone until they say they want to play family. It was in August 2022 that Sarah noticed she and Andrew could not go out without being thronged by people. On a camping trip in Washington State that same month, Sarah brought syringes in a cooler with ice packs. Every day of the trip, he injected the drugs meant to stimulate fertility into her stomach. This was round 4, and I guarantee you she wanted it and pushed for it. But it's making it sound like, oh my God, like a victim. Later that month, Sarah says she grabbed Andrew's phone when he had left it in the bathroom. So she's read his journal, and now she's grabbing his phone. checked his texts and found conversations with someone we will call Eve. Some of them took place during the camping trip they had just taken. Quote, "Your feelings matter," he told Eve on a day when he had injected his girlfriend with HCG. Quote, "I'm actually very much a caretaker." And later, quote, "I'm back on grid tomorrow and would love to see you this weekend." Caught having an affair, Andrew was apologetic. Quote, "The landscape has been incredibly hard," end quote, he said. "I let the stress get to me. I defaulted to self-safety. I've also sat with the hardest of feelings. I hear your insights," he said, "and honestly, I appreciate them." That's not how an abusive, controlling man talks, just by the way. Sarah noticed how courteous he was with Eve. So many offers, she points out, to process and work through things. Eve is an ethereally beautiful actress, the kind of woman from whom it is hard to look away, where Sarah exudes a winsome, chaotic energy. Okay. Eve is intimidatingly collected. Intimidatingly. Eve saw Andrew on Rhea in 2020 and messaged him on Instagram. They went for a swim in Venice and he complimented her form. "You're definitely," he said, "on the faster side of the distribution." She found him to be an extraordinary listener and liked the way he appeared to be interested in her internal life. He was busy all the time with his book and eventually the podcast, his dog, responsibilities at Stanford. Quote, "I'm willing to do the repair work on this," he said when she called him out for standing her up. Or, quote, "This sucks, but doesn't deter my desire and commitment to see you and establish clear lines of communication and trust." Despite his endless excuses for not showing up, he seemed to Eve to be serious about deepening their relationship, which lasted on and off for 2 years. Eve had the impression that he was not seeing anyone else. She was willing to have unprotected bedtime fun. Stop it. Women, stop. Stop doing that. I get it. Okay, if he's seeing more than one person and they don't know about each other, and he knows that these women think that they're exclusive, that is wrong. That's wrong. However, women, you are the gatekeepers to sex. You have to stop being 304s. It has to be committed. There's a reason for, and I'm not talking about a government contract and what it turned into in family court, but there was a reason for marriage. This dating thing and living together and having sex before marriage, this is what it creates. And it happened after the sexual revolution, and women were the ones that were freed. It's worse and worse. These women are having unprotected. It's on them, and he is being so dumb to do it. I can't believe he just. Oh man. Well, I guess that's as good a place to stop as any for part 2. It's probably as much as I can take. Getting angry is not healthy, and it's infuriating. And hopefully no one's taking any of this negativity towards Andrew Huberman seriously. And I feel for all of you guys who have been through similar things. But hopefully you know you're not predators and you're not evil. So take care of yourselves and do something wonderful. Be careful of the crazies today because of the eclipse. People are nuts. Anyway, I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for joining me. And the new camera and mic are going to get ordered in 2 weeks, so it will be much better. So I love you guys. Take care.